and I was pissed. I had nightmares. I woke up angry at the people around me the next day. So the first book is Queen Sugar. It was awesome, very well written. The author was Natalie Bazile. It's a mother-daughter story, and Queen Sugar was really interesting as a read because I actually got into the series before I ever knew there was a book, and it just so happened that of course, these producers, the writers, they get us so involved. We get so invested in these stories and these shows, and then they go on mid-season break. They just stop making episodes. People just stop. They stop acting it out. We're left in the dark. I don't know what's going on. I got to find out. I was addicted. But they just left me out to dry, and I had to do something about it. So quickly, as soon as possible, I ran to get a copy of Queen Sugar, and I'm so glad that I did. It was an awesome story, and just so refreshing because there were a lot of things that I thought I knew about the story, having watched every single episode of the show up until that point. I mean, binge watch, like multiple times, seeing the same episodes. So I thought, aware of exactly what kind of a story I was getting. And of course, there were some similarities. The story did not, uh, it had a lot of similarities to the series, but there were some major differences in the book and in the show that made for a great reading experience because I was shocked in a lot of different ways by a lot of different characters. As you know, and this is like a universal spoiler alert. If you have not read these books, if you have not seen these shows, you're gonna hate me. So just exit, stop the video, go somewhere else, catch up, and then come back. I'm only reviewing the books that I've read. I'm only talking about the shows that I've seen. So if you didn't, and you're gonna get mad if I tell you, just get out of here. Back to the review though. It was great. There were so many differences. One of the major differences was that Micah was a young lady. So Queen Sugar, the novel, was actually a mother-daughter story where Charlie was going on a journey with her young daughter, as opposed to in the show where Micah's a young man. So that's a bit of a different experience and different conversations that you have to have as the mother of a son versus the mother of a daughter. Um, in the novel, uh, Charlie's actually widowed, whereas in the show, Charlie's ex-husband ain't shit. Davis is really like the worst. Of course, in the end, it seems that his character will be developed a little further, and he may be able to redeem himself. But he was scum of the earth. That was we loved him. We were introduced to him, and they're just this great couple, and so in love, and they have it all, and they're in LA, and he's this big basketball star, and she's like the wife, manager, everything to him, and he's just like dragging her through the mud and completely unaware of the fact that he's living this whole double life and a life that's without respect for their family and the things that they've built up until that point. So we hate Davis pretty much. Like everybody agrees, Davis is the worst in the show, but in the book, it's a different situation. It's the same backstory where Charlie's father has died and she has inherited the land, some sugarcane land, and just navigating a change of pace, moving from LA to Louisiana and going from an urban to a rural environment with your young child, who of course is leaving, but grudgingly so. So that was really interesting. Of course, there were relationships that were developed throughout the novel as well, in terms of romance and intimacy with siblings, and it was great overall. I was definitely emotionally invested, and I feel like in the book more than the movie, I just have like strong feelings of hatred, like intense frustration and anger and irritation toward Ralph Angel that I don't feel to the same extent in the show. I do remember times feeling as though Ralph Angel aka Kofi Siriboe in the show, was, entitled and doing the most with the least, but that is nothing compared to the terror that he wreaks in the novel, because he literally has none of the skills and experiences that he needs to really talk the shit that he talks. That and there's an interesting character called Miss Honey in the novel as well. She doesn't actually exist in the series. Actually, Nova Bordelon's character exists in the series, but not in the book. Aunt Vi exists in the book, but Aunt Vi in the show is a fusion of Miss Honey and Violet. So it's kind of interesting. She's got that matriarch thing going on, with the maternal nurturing persona, that isn't spoiled in the way that Miss Honey is. Like, it's so ironic to me that Miss Honey sounds so sweet. You feel like you should love her based on her name, but she's terrible. She's a sourpuss. She's so bitter. Nothing sweet about her. Of course, she's had a hard life. And I think to an extent there's some room for character development with her. But in terms of her contributions to the other characters' journeys, she's just, on the fringes messing stuff up. But all in all, I would say that Queen Sugar was an excellent book. And I think it's really cool the way the novel and the series continue to complement each other. Of course, it's difficult to talk about Queen Sugar in a conclusive way, because while I've read the novel and it's over with, it's ended, we know what happens in the story. The series is still unfolding, and as I mentioned, there are some continuity issues that make them completely different stories in a sense. So we're still walking with the characters in the show in a way that we have concluded in a way that's very different from the novel, because we've concluded our journey with them. We know that Ralph Angel meets his fateful end, and actually the way that the book ends is kind of the beginning of a new story. And I think that Ava DuVernay does a good job of picking up where the story left off at the very beginning. So let me kind of explain what that means. At the end of the book, Charlie finally has the opportunity to expand her business and grow her business and actually just have a shot at being a businesswoman without struggling to the same extent that she has financially. She's still struggling to learn the language and learn the land and learn the craft in general. Learn the work. She's learned the work throughout the process and is doing a pretty good job, considering the fact that she knows nothing coming into this, and just has this burden placed on her shoulders, and she carries that along with the weight of parenting an adolescent child who's an asshole, and being a widowed wife, and having these strained family relationships and all the tension that comes with these things. But it's just really cool the way that the novel complements the story, the show and the series complements the novel. I also think an important difference between the novel and the show is the relationship of our faves, that being Charlie and her family, the whole Bordelon clan crew. Let me not say clan, because what I'm getting at is the fact that we have an interesting relationship with white people and the ways that they can be a menace to the colored folks around them. With respect to the Bordelon family, and Charlie, she's really not staying in her place, in that she's being quiet and she's being meek and she's being humble and keeping her head down. Like, she really gets to Louisiana and shakes shit up from day one, and she's a threat. She's a force to be reckoned with from day one. And I think that there are some folks that play nice and some folks that do a poor job of masking their discomfort and further their disdain, um, as it pertains to Charlie and the Bordelon family and their wealth and their position. Um, and I feel like Ava DuVernay's Queen Sugar has a kind of like a black power twist to it, where like we we like a for us by us situation where we're for the people, whereas I don't know, I feel like the love and the pride and the sense of community with Queen Ava's Sugar is more pronounced, whereas Queen Natalie's Sugar, you know, of course they have a close knit family unit, um, but in a lot of ways, there is more of a presence of white folks in Queen Natalie Sugar, and they're not always menacing. You know, there are more good white guys in Queen Natalie Sugar in the novel, so that's really interesting. There are a lot of different reasons that may be so, uh, but it was just a great read overall, and I've been really excited to continue to be upset and get involved with the characters and fall in love with the characters. And maybe sometime in the future we'll come back with a different video where I, you know, give my final takes on what has happened with our favorite characters. For now, as I mentioned, things are still unfolding, so it's a little difficult to call it and to have a final view. But yeah, great stories, great journeys. One thing that I didn't mention, Darla is, like Davis, deceased at the beginning of the book. So we don't get her storyline of, you know, her really being able to flesh out her own story and tell her story in her own words. In the book, she has the issue. We know that her backstory, in spite of the fact that she's dead, we know that she struggled with drug addiction and drug abuse and all those things, but her story gets told by a person other than herself. So we receive it in a different way, whereas here she's more in control of her story. And I felt pity for Darla until the most recent episode. She just goes and like deals this blow and tells us that Blue may not be our kid, and it's just so crazy. Like, why do we have to go through this? You know, like, you know, I just, it was a lot. I know that she can't take back the mistakes that she's made in the past, but I think that I just wish, and I can't change this, but of course I can be frustrated. I just wish that she, if she decided to make amends for the things in the past, she did so with less recklessness. Like, I feel like she was so reckless when she told Ralph Angel about the possibility, because I know I heard her say, he may not be yours. But I feel like she should have been sure. She should have been certain before she dealt him that blow. Like, I just felt like it was selfish. That is our child. Like, that's our baby, our Blue. And if you're gonna come to me with this information, you need to know, okay? And I don't feel like she knew. I don't feel like she was secure. Like, she didn't give me that security. And Ralph Angel, our boy, is still broken, and I hate her for that. But all in all, I think I just really appreciate the way that the book and the series play on each other, because there are a lot of things that are not in the book. But that's what's so cool, because I feel like Ava DuVernay, even though sometimes I get upset with her because she will create trauma to inflict on us, she creates these woes that we have, really. And like, we love them and we hate them at the same time. But she reimagines so many possibilities for our characters and provide so many alternatives to their lives, that give them more depth in a sense, and round them out as character. And sometimes it makes them more jagged, their edges. But one thing that I also thought was really cool, and it's kind of random, is the fact that, just considering these actors and actresses outside of their roles as characters in Queen Sugar, Blue is a kid right now. So I don't know that he's fully aware of the plot and the storyline as it's unfolding. And I think it'd be really cool. I was just imagining him looking back on himself as a child actor and watching the show as an adult and seeing the role that he played and all this madness, all this nonsense that they put him and the rest of us through, But I think it'd be really cool to look back on his role. And I also had to consider, while I felt for Ralph Angel, like my heart ached for him so much and I was pissed. I had nightmares. I woke up angry at the people around me the next day because of that episode, and just the things that I had on my mind and my heart and in my subconscious from watching the show. I carried it with me to sleep, and I was tossing and turning, and I really had to think about the fact that I want to be so upset and angry with Darla, but the ability to procreate is something that only a woman has, and Ralph Angel, at least in the novel, was so reckless, like so much more reckless than Darla. And in a lot of ways, I would say that he was responsible for her death because of the way that he just abandoned her and caused her to relapse and to just fall back into a life that she had walked away from up until that point. If he had the ability to procreate, I had to think about the fact that, like, Ralph Angel might damn well have 10 kids with no mama running around. So, I mean, I know that didn't happen. I know that he does not have that ability, but I just had to consider, and it's weird because I'm almost holding the Ralph Angel in the series accountable for mistakes that he never made in the series. He actually made these mistakes in the novel. But the recklessness of Ralph Angel in the series is not seen to the same extent as it is fleshed out in the novel. So in a sense, like, Ralph Angel's a better person. Ava's Ralph Angel's a better person overall than Ralph Angel in the novel. And I don't know if it'll stay that way. From season to season, I mean, we're catching up to the novel. I feel like there are some things that were not originally within the plans that I could see it unfolding to become later on in the series. But yeah, Kofi Siriboe's Ralph Angel is a better man than Ralph Angel in the novel, and for that, my heart aches for him because I feel like he doesn't deserve it. But then when I think about Ralph Angel in the novel, it's like, there were so many. If he had lived for longer, there was so much more havoc that he would likely have wreaked on the lives of the people around him. And so I think I'm angry, like I said before, but Darla deserves to redeem herself, and I hope that she's able to do that. I don't know how she's gonna do that, because we love Blue too much. We love Ralph Angel too much and the family too much, and this was just such a blow overall. But yeah, what an interesting thing that we're dealing with. Also, one thing that I wanted to mention, and this is in reference to the series, I thought the conversation that Nova had with her cop bae, that she ain't never really get over, it was so well done, that exchange, because I feel like that conversation that they had it went to places that, like, they needed to have that. Like, it was well needed, those conversations that they somehow never seemed to have, in spite of the fact that they had been together and through so much for however long their relationship lasted. But it just seems like it was a little unrealistic. Like, the way that you imagine closure, and you're saying anything that you ever had on your heart and getting things off your chest and letting things out and able to move on. It never really happens like that. I feel like sometimes, at least for me, closure has been an excuse to like backslide into communicating more frequently with the person that you shouldn't be talking to, or like getting your last uh like conversations, and you get to be in touch one more time, or be in love one more time, or like get back in a relationship, or kind of like rekindle things in a sense. And I feel like that kind of closure was just like the best kind. The kind that we fool ourselves into thinking we'll have when we're looking to end a relationship once and for all. And I really think it was great that she ended the relationship in that way. And I was having a conversation with a few people who felt like the way that she chose to end the relationship with her intellectual bae, Chocolate Bae, was harsh, but I get it. Like, I really identify with Nova in spite of the fact that she can be intense, and maybe because of the fact that she could be intense. Like, feeling like I'm gonna be me, and your need to be you cannot impede on my need to be me. Otherwise, we can't be we. Poetic. That was poetry. Okay, that was poetry. But I really, honestly, I felt her when she said that to him. It's like, man, you could be the greatest of guys. You could be a good person, and it's not enough because your being you, it impedes on me. You know what I'm saying? It's like I have to be less. I have to be, like boxed in order for us to be how we are. Like you can't just be crowding my space. Like, we gotta love each other, and I want you to love the version of me that I want to become. I want you to bring the things out of me and appreciate the things about me that I love about myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, grow me, challenge me. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, like, we have to be on the same page about where this thing is going. Because I want a different thing for my life than you want for yours. And also, it's selfish for me to decide things for you that you just have to know for yourself. So I feel Nova. I feel Nova on that. Like, I wondered too about whether she needs to work on her ability to compromise. But at the same time, like, I just really identify with Nova a lot. So I thought that was cool. I'm trying to think if there are things that I'm missing. But I am just rooting for all of our faves. Great show, great novel, and I'm looking forward to the next. Over and out.